it's going to be an interesting one for sure. And it's about a company we haven't written too much about, to be honest. And whenever I talk to Swedes in Sweden, they say that it's not really a startup anymore, which I guess is kind of true. If you define that a startup isn't doing business in the millions of dollars. But then again, if you look at it from another perspective, that the company hasn't been around all that long. So I think it's an incredible story, something that hasn't been talked about too much in the Nordics and Baltics, for that matter. So please join me in welcoming Niklas Adalberth of Klarna.
Great. Thank you very much. Great to be here. Great to be in Finland. We have an office here since about 4 years back. So I've been here every now and then. And I'm just curious now to start with, how many here have heard about Klarna since before? Hands up. Oh, quite a few. Very good. Very good. Just a short introduction to what Klarna does. Imagine yourself going shopping. You're going to go and find this perfect shirt. So you are at your local H&M store. You're walking around in the aisles, and suddenly you find this shirt. You see it's a perfect color. You go and try it on. It fits good. And you can also see that the quality is correct. So you bring it with you, you take it to the cashier, and you just swipe your card, and it's done. So buying in physical stores are actually quite easy. However, the same experience online is a total different thing. I mean, first of all, it's quite complex. You need to fill out all these forms. You might need to have your DigiPass from your bank. And in the end, most people prefer not to pay first and then hope to get the products. Because you're not sure if it's going to be the right color or if you're going to have a product at all. So most people prefer paying after delivery. So why doesn't this exist online in the same good way as it does offline? Well, here's exactly where Klarna comes into the picture. Because we are in the middle. We make sure that you as an end customer can just go in online, just enter name and address, press buy, and you get the stuff, and then later on you pay by an invoice, or laskula, as I think is said in Finnish. And the merchant, I mean, they prefer to get paid before they send the stuff. We pay them no matter what happens. So we take the complete risk, all administration, and give them the money right away while you're purchasing. And we take the risk. And that's the business idea of Klarna. Some short information about me. I'm 30 years old. I'm born and raised in Uppsala, north of Stockholm. And I always liked computers. And my first business idea was when I was 14 years old. I'm standing outside the local supermarket in Uppsala, and I see a couple of older friends coming out with a cage of beer. And I wondered directly, I mean, how is this possible? They're not 18. And it turns out that they just made a simple copy of an ID and just changed the numbers so they actually would be older on the ID card. And since I've been playing around with Photoshop for quite some time, I figured out that, oh, I can make that ID card so much better. So I go home, I start experimenting, and it comes out quite well. And I start to show it around to my friends, and they get interested, so I'm able to sell a few. That is spreading, so sell even more. And this turns out to be quite well profitable business. Unfortunately, 1.5 years later, I'm 15 years old, I realize, hey, what the hell am I doing? I start to get nervous every time it calls on the phone. If it knocks on the door, I'm afraid it's the police. I mean, I've been selling hundreds of these. And, well, I went bankrupt. One day, the police came and showed up and did a huge investigations. and over 32 people got caught in this, I don't know what you call it in English, but forgery gang. It was a quite big thing in Sweden. And I learned a lot from this experience. I learned that it's fun to start business. It's not that hard. I mean, anyone can do it. But the most important lesson, I think, was that it's never, ever worth to be on the wrong side of the law. Because you're so nervous all the time, you don't sleep very well, and it's just simply not worth it. So, since I turned down that business before I got caught, I didn't end up in jail, which was great. So I was able to finish high school, went into the military service, and then later on decided to go with my childhood friend Sebastian around the world without flying. And we came all the way to Australia, and in Australia we missed the boat across the Pacific Ocean by just a couple of hours. And the problem with this was that Sebastian was supposed to do a re-exam in the Stockholm School of Economics in order to get into his master's program. And if he wouldn't be back on time, he had to step over a year. And since he wanted to continue the trip, he had to do that. So we finalized it, went back home in Sweden. This was the year 2003. It was extremely hard to find a job in Sweden since it was a recession. So the only job that Sebastian could find was to be a telesales person at a debt collection firm. Basically picking up the phone, calling these small firms and offering them debt collection. This was a very generic product, very tough job, very boring. But some of the customers he got in contact with was e-commerce sites. And they said that, sure, I would love to offer invoice, but the problem is that if you are on the blacklist, on the credit list, you don't care if you get another debt collection letter. You don't pay anyway. And that's when the idea was born, because he figured out if you do a simple credit check before you allow them to purchase, then you could actually handle this risk. So Sebastian presented this idea to me and Victor, and we said that, okay, let's give it a shot. So if we wouldn't have missed that boat, Klarna would not exist today. So I totally believe it's very important to be lucky in life. It's all about coincidences. So the first thing we did was to apply in an incubator at the Stockholm School of Economics. We presented the idea. And we were able to get a business coach to help us get going. But our first problem was that we were supposed to start a payment company. We had no money at all. We knew nothing about tech. I mean, we were business guys. And so what do you do? So we needed to find money. So we went around on different road shows, tried to find angel money. And finally, it was one lady, Jane Valerud, also behind Lensway and different other successful firms, that liked the idea. And she said that I have the perfect 4 guys to program this system as well. And just 3 weeks later on, we signed a deal. So we gave away 10% to Jane, and she put in 60,000 euro. So that was a quite good valuation for just a PowerPoint, I think. And the engineers that were supposed to build the system, they got another 37%. So just by a signature, we almost gave away half the company. And that was quite bitter, of course, but I mean, we realized this is a big business idea. If we ever want to start this and be successful, we need to give away shares. And so we did. So we started, and this was 2005 in February. And the first name of Klarna was actually Kreditor. So we thought it sounded very serious and legit. I mean, after all, we were supposed to handle people's money. So we needed a boring name. And this was one of the first presentations we did. The Stockholm School of Economics, Handelshögskolan in Stockholm, they have this yearly partner event, since it's sponsored by the industry. And in this specific partner event, they actually had this Dragon's Den show. So they let 3 companies out of the incubator to do a presentation. And it was a jury, and this is quite prominent jury in Sweden. It's Wallenberg, is the CEO of McKinsey, is Stefan Persson, the founder of H&M. And the problem was that when we did this presentation, we got totally flunked. We came absolutely last. Everyone was able to vote in the audience. And they said that, guys, this is not going to work. The banks will do this. You don't have a chance. And being there, 23 years old, with a wild business idea, was quite tough to hear that. These smart, intelligent people saying that this will never work. But it was actually a guy in the audience that came up to us and said that, don't listen to these old people. They have no clue what they're talking about. You will run much faster. Give it a shot. And we did. One of the first problems we encountered was the legitimate issue. I mean, who wanted to give away and let us handle the money when we existed for a couple of months? And I had experience of the Forgery stuff and Burger King, and that's about it. So we had to work very, very hard on this. And as you can see on this first picture, it was the first picture taken by a journalist, new technique. And we tried to dress up. This was my way too big costume or suit. You see the bookkeeping stamp, was a map of Sweden in the background. So I mean, we tried to do everything. And also like on the homepage, we tried to have the most serious homepage so we could pretend being much bigger than we actually were. Our phone number had a lot of zeros to it, so it looked like we were big as well. Spent a lot of time on the business cards, all those kind of things. And just some advice starting a company with friends. I think that if possible, complementary team. I mean, we've been suffering all along not having an engineer as a founder, and not only being business people. And also I think that like 80% of all our fights, I mean, we've been fighting a lot. Almost all our fights was about that I thought I worked much more than my friends, and they thought the same about me. I mean, every time I looked at their screen, Sebastian was looking at Star Trek, and Victor was looking at CNN and so on. And you have this like, it's the same as when you're home and you think your wife or your fiancé do less dishes than you and so on. It's always like that. So what we actually started to do is to count hours. So every time we went into the office, we wrote when we came and also when we left. And by doing that, we removed this psychological feeling of you working more than the other ones. And we could reduce a lot of fights. Also, we had the open screen, which means that all screens in the entire company needs to face out. So you could always see what everyone is doing. I think that also helps a lot to the discipline which is needed when starting a business. And finally, agree to the same ambition level. If you have one founder that just wants to start a business to have something to do, and another one wants to build a world-class business, you will have a fight in the end and not agree, I think. So try to agree on the same ambition level early on. About discipline and sales focus is another picture. We worked a lot. I think we spent on average 85 hours a week the first 3 years. And I think that is required when starting a business and trying to go for the worldwide. This was like one of the hottest days in Sweden. We didn't have any air condition, so all our friends was out in the sea, relaxing, but we were inside working. And we also had a lot of sales focus, which is something I think most tech companies forget. And what I mean with sales focus is that since we were aiming for the B2B market, the cheapest way to acquire new merchants, according to me, is to just pick up the phone and call people. It's very tough to do, it's very boring, it's not very prestigious or anything, but it's the most effective thing. Because it's just mathematics. If you do 100 calls, you'll probably get 10 meetings, and out of 10 meetings, you will have one signed deal. So if you want to double the sales, double the revenue, you do 200 phone calls. And it's much cheaper doing that than having like a 10,000K advertising in a newspaper. So it went quite well. We were able to sign up merchants, online stores selling online, and we grew to 30 people in 2007. We launched a new product, which was part payment, so you can do a part payment very simple online. And due to this as well, all of you that know economics, you know the balance sheet. If you're going to lend out more money, you need to have more money in equity. And since we were being a finance company, we needed to take in more money because we were not profitable enough to offset equity to the balance sheet. So we needed to take in new investors, and we did that with Öresund, which was, at that time at least, a good investor in Sweden. Continue to grow. This is from our yearly masquerade. And then a couple of advice when it comes to leadership in high extreme growth. I think that number one, and it should be on all phases you are in when starting a company, to have recruitment as number one. If you look to other companies, they have the same. Facebook, their number one goal and number one target for the managers is to be excellent in recruitment. If you get the right people on board, it makes it so much easier. We do a lot of tests on all our recruits. We do logic tests, because that shows that you have an easier way to learn. That's quite good when you have a changing environment. So all kind of different tests, and we want the absolute best. Another thing is that you need to challenge everything at all time. I mean, a manager that's been a manager year one for 10 people and do a perfect job, year two, we double in size, is 20 people, and maybe it's the wrong fit. That's quite challenging to have someone that you actually done a perfect job to actually replace that person with someone else. But I think that in high-speed growth ventures, you need to look into that every time. Same goes with organization, routines, systems. A bookkeeping system that works for 30 employees doesn't work for 500 employees, and so forth. Communication, another thing that you could always be better at and work even more at. I mean, all the employee service we do, people always complain that they don't get information early enough. So we spend a lot of energy into that. And also delegation. I mean, once again, we did have no experience starting this, so we always need to get in people that were better than us. If you're going to be able to keep people that are better than yourself, you need to be able to delegate and give true ownership to different tasks. And finally, being a role model. If you go home 5 o'clock, the employees will go home 5 o'clock. If you stay to 8 o'clock, they most likely go home at maybe 7 o'clock. If you're disciplined and don't go in and surf the news site, I mean, they will tend to do the same. So always act as a role model. It makes leadership much, much easier. In 2008 was the first step to the expansion. And one of those countries were Finland. And the reason we picked these countries was, I guess, the psychic distance being the lowest. And this is how most companies tend to expand. They go to the countries right next because it feels less scary. If I could redo this, I would probably go to Germany instantly. Because, I mean, it's the same work you need to put down going to Norway and going to Germany. So why choose a market that is like 10 times as small? Doesn't make sense. So go for the larger markets directly is my advice into this. In 2010, PayPal bought a similar company to Klarna in the United States. And the valuation was huge. And what happens when these kind of acquisitions happen in the United States is that the venture capitalists try to find comparable companies in other geographies. And Klarna came the furthest in Europe. So from one day to another, our phone started to call like crazy, and all kind of VCs wanted to invest in Klarna. So once again, we were super lucky about this, and we needed the money because we were growing. We needed more equity for the balance sheet. And so we were able to cherry pick, basically, and we picked the best one we could find, which was Sequoia Capital. And Sequoia, for those that don't know, they are the ones that funded Apple from the beginning, Google, PayPal, YouTube, and a lot of other successful firms. So it's great being backed by Sequoia. And one thing is having a professional board, having done a tech company multiple times before. Another thing is to get into their contact pool, to be able to recruit even better talent, to get meetings with Facebook if you like to have that, just by one day. But also very good for our brand. I mean, we are a tech company, we have 200 engineers today, and this really helps to show that you're backed by a serious player to attract better talent. So with this money, we were able to expand further. We went into Netherlands and Germany. And now, quite recently, this was 9 months ago, we got in new investors once again. And once again, we were able to cherry pick. So we went with DST and General Atlantic, other successful VC firms that done huge successes. You can see the brands up there. And my recommendation when it comes to taking on venture capitalists, I totally would push for it. It really helps to align the company. You make smarter decisions. They've done this before. And it's so good to have someone to deliver to. If it's only yourself, you don't have the same pressure. And I think this pressure is actually a good pressure. And also what people tend to forget is that, I mean, doing all these rounds, you might think that we've been quite diluted by now and basically owning nothing. The reality is that we three founders, we still have the majority. We've been able to keep that with the stock option programs. So we have the right to buy back shares that we've been diluted from, and being able to do that with a small amount of money. And hence, we still have the complete control of the company. So it's all what's in the agreements that you sign with the venture capitalist. If you are in a position where you have high growth, you might be profitable, or at least close to profitable, you all here might be able to dictate the terms, just as we did. So where are we now? So last year we closed at 84 million in revenue. We handled billions of euro in our system, in our payment system. You can see this graph, that's our growth rate in terms of revenue. And we think that we will be able to close this year at a turnover of about 140 million euros. And we've been able to do this and being profitable since year 2. So year 1 we were not profitable, but since then. We're 750 employees today. And as I said, about 200 in engineering, about 200 in sales. We have offices in the countries I talked about before, and also a development office in Tel Aviv. We were able to find talent. Short-term future is to go to more countries. And long-term future is that we totally believe that buying should be as simple as a like button. So if you are on a news page or whatever, it should just be a button away in order to pay. It's still too complicated to pay today, we think. And there's so much more to be done here. Thank you very much. Any questions?
So we've got the couple of microphones at the back again. So there's a hand up here in the middle. Christopher from Holvi.
Hi there. So Christopher from Holvi, and we're also in the sort of the finance and the payment business. And I wondered, back in those days, what kind of issues did you have with regulation, or was that much of a problem for you guys expanding into further markets and stuff like that?
Sorry, once again.
In regulation, so financial regulation, was that much of a problem for you guys, especially when you were expanding beyond Sweden?
It was. So, I mean, looking at our business today, we're basically regulated as a bank. Being regulated as a bank, you need to have a compliance department, you need to have an independent risk department. Everything that you know, all routines, all instructions, all policies need to be written down in a compliance framework. And I mean, if you find bookkeeping and stuff like that boring, nothing compared to this. It's like the most boring stuff you could ever do. So yes, we're heavily hit by the regulations. And this is also why we're not in the United States today, because then we need to file another bank license. With the European Union, we could have the same, and it's quite easy to expand within the European Union. You don't have to do this once.
All right, any other questions?
I can ask another one if you want.
I'll actually ask another one here, and then we can follow up with that gentleman over there. Sort of related to the question just now, what are the biggest challenges, in your opinion, in sort of scaling your business in Europe? And this is something we're going to talk about later in a panel discussion as well, but would like to hear your thoughts on this.
No, so I think that the most difficult things when growing, I mean, I don't think it's a single thing. I think it's like multiple things. One of it is to have the growth capital. So we always need to raise new money. That takes a lot of time. To have the right people in place. Once again, I mean, if to be a manager over managers is a totally different thing than just being a manager over employees. So I think all of that takes a lot of time. And also, when expanding, your business becomes even more complicated. So to have this stick together is a challenge.
So Europe has still some way to go to create one single sort of unified Europe in that sense.
Definitely, definitely. And we do so many mistakes every day. It's unbelievable. I don't even know how the company can exist today, basically.
All right, over there.
My name is Eero. Hello. As I understand, your competitive advantage is being able to make these split-second decisions on people's credit worthiness. But that must be quite different in different European countries. Can you address that a little bit? Is there like countries that have national ID systems and centralized databases and others that don't? Is that an issue for you?
It is a huge issue. So actually, when expanding to Germany, we almost went bust because of that. Because in Germany, you don't have social security number, because it's quite sensitive since after the war to have a number on people. So we were able to get the identity by matching just name and address. And hence, we gave a lot of credit to people that really didn't existed. So we had about 20% credit losses in the beginning before we could actually adjust the models to be as good as they are now in Scandinavia. And that is Germany, which is a civilized country. Doing this in, I have no idea, Mongolia, where you have no data, even more tricky. So I think it will, every new country we expand into gets more and more exotic. But then, of course, in some countries we need to have external data as well, such as blacklist data, and that doesn't exist everywhere. That is a challenge.
Yeah, partly related to that, I wanted to ask what kind of sort of fraud systems do you have in place? I mean, you don't need to open it wide here in front of everybody, but just in general, talk about maybe sort of extrapolate a little on that, because you just mentioned that it's 140 or similar kind of factors that you account for. Are there any other sort of clear fraud mechanisms that you have sort of maybe realized later on that you really need to have in place as an advice perhaps to other entrepreneurs in the crowd?
Right, so I think that, I mean, when it comes to the fraud handling and credit risk handling, I think that that is what made Klarna to a $1 billion valuation, just because of the way we're able to handle this risk. So I think we do it quite sophisticated. So once again, another example, if you copy paste in your data, we're able to see that, and it's higher risk rather than if you write it in a slow enough way, but not too slow, because then the fraud risk rate increase again. If you have like a capital letter in the beginning of your name, or if you just write it with all capital letters, also different risk. So it's quite sophisticated. So I don't really know how to apply that for other businesses, but let the experts deal with fraud, I guess, if you have an e-commerce firm.
Very good. Any other? There's question over there.
Hello, I'm Jukka Partanen from Dignite. So one question about debt collection. Are you doing it by yourself, or have you outsourced it?
Yeah, so that's one of our revenue stream. So actually, the best customer is the one that doesn't pay directly, but actually get a reminder, and then also a debt collection letter, because we're able to add the legal fees, stately controlled fees in that specific country. So yes, we are our own debt collection firm as well, and we do that during a different brand, which is called Seguria, not to ruin our own brand.
I was going to ask, has that anything to do with the Estonian mafia, but I guess you sort of answered that.
I would never confess that, anyway.
All right. I think there's one question over there on the other side.
Yeah, I have another question. Leading on from the outsourcing question, are there activities that you consider non-core that you outsource from your company?
It is. So, I mean, one thing we outsource is some of the first-line customer care. So, apart from the 700 we are today, we have additional 200 people outsourced to different firms dealing with the first-line customer care. And that's basically to handle the peaks, just to have the best customer satisfaction for our merchants. And I think we're moving in a direction where I mean, when I started the business, I thought that it's so cool to have many employees, because that's like the only number that my relatives and family could relate to. They don't understand turnover, they don't understand profit, but how many are, they could always understand. That's like, okay, let's have everything in-house. Now I'm slightly more mature and think it's just so complicated being too many people. So if I could choose, I would probably stick to the 700 we are today and be more scalable, and hence outsource some of the other stuff as well. But it's tough. I mean, you always believe that you could do things greater yourself, but then you lose focus on the core stuff, so you need to take those tough decisions. And we could be much, much better than that.
All right, very good. Then we have a question from Norway.
Yeah. My name is Anders. I run a company called Mesh, and we're 7 employees now. And I find it extremely difficult, the leadership part of the company, growing slowly, getting into higher growth. What are your main advice on leadership as a young leader? Anything there?
I think number one is the one that I showed on the screen, is get people in there that are better than you. And give them huge responsibility so that they feel motivated. Yeah. So basically you just being someone that just orchestra the people.
Yeah. But we're already, we use a lot of time managing 7 people. You have 750. How do you get time to do other stuff than working with your people?
So I guess delegation. I mean, I don't know the names of everyone yet. I mean, it's some people I only meet like every second month. Just take our Finnish office. It was like 2 years before I was here last time, which is horrible leadership in some way. But I guess I have to choose where to focus my time on. And that is like the management team. And through them, lead the company. But it is very, very difficult. I mean, I learn every day. And once again, I do mistakes daily.
All right, very good. Let's take 2 more questions. There's one at the back.
Hi, I'm Sebastian Mäki, and I'm a developer at Warrantify. I was wondering, what's your position on bitcoins? Is it an opportunity or a threat or what?
Credit card, you said?
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. Not too familiar with them. I think they're more focused on micro payments, right?
Well, basically, Bitcoin is a digital currency that you can use all over the world, and it's decentralized system. Basically, no one can basically manipulate Bitcoins, and they just, you just transfer Bitcoins without any transfer fees and so on.
Right. Yeah. Now I remember. No, I think that, in general, you read on TechCrunch and different other sites that now this fantastic launch of the new mobile payment company and so on, and I think they all have some fundamental problems, and that is that they don't realize how long time it takes to change consumer behavior. Consumer behavior by itself takes way long time. Doing it in payments take even longer time. They've been talking about mobile payments in 10 years, and still, I guess, basically no one here is actually using it. Most of the time because it's too much friction, you need to download and so on. And I think the same goes with stuff like Bitcoin. They have some traction, but still growing quite slow, I think. And I think it's quite far away until that becomes so popular that it will be a threat to us. And also I think that it's also based on that you first need to register. And that is really ruining a lot of stuff. With our model, you don't have to pre-register. You just enter your name, address, date of birth, and it's done. And then you're able to purchase. So I think it's Bitcoin, too much friction, too slow customer adaptation. But one day, who knows?
All right, thank you. And then is there one last question?
My name is James Winter. Just a quick question. Where do you see your biggest opportunity? I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of the speech, I apologize, but where do you see your biggest opportunity in the next couple of years for explosive growth?
No, I think, short term, I think, do you mean Klarna's biggest opportunity, or do you mean in general?
Klarna, yeah,
Klarna. So
markets or products or audiences or...
Right, so I think that, it's two answers to that question. I think the biggest opportunity right now is for us Germany. Once again, we have, I think, 3% of the volume in Germany. In Sweden, we have about 60-70%. If we're able to get up to that number in Germany, we could 10 times the company size in Germany alone, because it's so big market. So I think increasing focus for Germany, that's one thing. The other thing is I think that no one really solved virtual payments in a good way yet. Looking at all the news sites, they would really love to be able to charge for a single article. But it's too complicated. No one wants to enter your credit card information or something just to read one article. You don't want to register on PayPal because it's too complicated. So I think that that's an opportunity. If you're able to make it as easy as this, and I think we're heading in that direction, then I think it's a huge opportunity going virtual for Klarna.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Niklas. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you.